Yeah. Okay, the Gentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation. Knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Gentry. The Gentry Podcast. The Gentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello, and welcome to the Gentry Podcast. Today we have a first. Not one, but two guests for the price of one. We have two familiar faces that you may know if you are into the local government space. We have Sam Toles, who is the CEO of CiviSocial. They help county managers and city managers execute effectively online and through social media. And then we have Dr. Scott Andrews. He is the county manager of Doña Ana, New Mexico, and he is very well known. And the one thing we have between both of these two distinguished gentlemen, they're both authors. So I can't wait to get into this. Sam, Dr. Scott, how are you guys doing today?
Doing amazing. Thank you for having us on, Jonathan.
Yeah, thank you so much. I've really been looking forward to this.
Likewise. So you guys have incredible backgrounds, and I don't want to spoil it, but Sam, give us your background and how that has either influenced you or you to the point that you are here today.
Yeah, I mean, my background is super unusual for, your audience, for local government folks, though I did serve. I was a city council member. And before I tell you sort of my, private sector career, which everybody sort of celebrates and gets excited about, the thing I'll say is that the reason I do the work I do now is because when I look back on my, 27 years of career, the thing I am proudest of, the thing where my heart said, you did something important, you left something that will live beyond your years, was my time in local government. And it wasn't an easy time. One of the things I think that managers like Scott and all of the managers I've had the pleasure of working with, when you're in it, and that was true in my time of council, I had a very divisive council. I happened to be the swing vote. I had two very left-wing folks and two very right-wing folks, and they hated each other. And so it always came down to me and making tough decisions. And sometimes I'd vote with one side and sometimes I'd vote with the other side. And a lot of people were uncomfortable and unhappy. But when I look back at the community that I had the pleasure and the privilege of serving in, the changes that the foundations and changes that I and my manager, which was the best and most important decision I made, was the hiring of Charlie McClendon, who has been the manager since we hired him back in 2013. He's retiring this year, but he took that foundation that even divisive council laid, and as his talents were put to task, made transformational change. And so my main career has been in media. I've run such legendary companies as Bleacher Report as their chief content officer. I ran the Vimeo platform, ran digital and new platforms for MGM Studios, have worked for Warner Brothers, have worked for Paramount, highest level of media. Have also really had the privilege of working with some of the biggest influencers, members of the Mr. Beast team, names you wouldn't have heard of like Rambo and Tubbo and Amesy, but huge influencers in the Twitch space, people like Sonia Richards-Ross and Michael Phelps, Olympic gold medalists. I've done a lot of amazing content. I have Emmy nominations. I even have a project that was nominated for an Oscar that I was involved in. But when it comes down to it, my mastery of social media back in 2024, I realized that social media, I have made a tremendous career on it. I've been very successful at it, but it's really hurt the people I care about most, which is my friends in local government. And so I left my private sector career to go on this journey to help local governments understand this medium, take control of this medium, and really begin to fight back against what I call the STPs, the same 10 or 20 people who clutter your Facebook feeds, make your staff feel miserable, and make your life difficult. But that's the shortest version of my story I can tell. I know we're at the end of the podcast, but Scott, do you want to go next?
That's tough to follow. My story, I grew up in Tampa, Florida, the same place I snuck into when I was a kid at a rec center is ultimately how I got my first opportunity in local government. So, non-traditional, I was a 20-something trying to find myself and was personal training on the side and still trying to go to school here and there. So my first government job was fitness coordinator for the recreation department for the city of Temple Terrace. So I worked there for almost 11 years. I climbed the ladder, went to school at night. I got kicked out of 2 colleges along the way. So once I started to pick up those bills myself, I got a little more dedicated and got focused, had some good mentors around me over that span. That 4-year degree took forever, but then I knocked out the master's and then the doctorate shortly after. So it sounds great now, but it was a long time coming. Then transitioned to the Atlanta area. I was in the Atlanta area for about 10 years. First as economic development director for the city of Sugar Hill, very visionary community, very forward thinking. We basically got to build a super modern environment from scratch. I mean, there was nothing but trailers and nothing around us when I got there. And I was my manager's first hire. And Paul Radford is still one of my best mentors. And I would encourage anyone to reach out to him. About 3.5 years in, he groomed me and told me I could do a lot more and kind of pushed me out of the nest in a way. I said, okay, I can do this. So I went to go be assistant city manager on the other side of Atlanta and Smyrna, where the Atlanta Braves now play. And we played a big role in making that happen and taking the Braves basically out of the heart of Atlanta to the suburbs on the other side of the perimeter. And city people all know that perimeter thing's a stigma. So that was a big deal for us. After serving there a few years, I said, I can do this. And went to the other side of Atlanta to serve as my first city manager assignment in Covington. That is the kind of the film mecca for Georgia. All those film tax credits are happening. So old school, like Dukes of Hazzard, and then new things. You'll see all the Vampire Diaries and things like that. But over 150 film and movies have taken place there. We actually even brought Cinelli Studios, and that was their first location. So we kind of built off the film location there. And then ego got the best of me. I can do this. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I wanted to be the city manager of Phoenix or San Antonio, one of these major cities. And then I went to Bakersfield, California, which I grew so much there. 48th largest city in the U.S., 1,000 employees, almost 500,000 residents. It'll surpass Oakland this year, more than likely, as 8th largest in California. So I served there for several years, learned a lot, grew tremendously, had some personal basically my daughter died while I was serving there. And no, it's okay. It's part of my story. I like to talk about it, honestly. So my 6 months in, after moving cross country, my daughter passes. So I sucked it up. I honored my 2-year code of ethics. And once that 2-year hit, I started applying for opportunities. And I had 3 kind of come at the same time. It's the way it always is. I waited 2 months, nothing happened, then all at once. This worked out. So now I'm my first county manager assignment. So I'm here as the CEO of Doña Ana County. Las Cruces is our county seat. So as you can imagine, serving in a border community under this current president, whether people love him or hate him, is treacherous. So we're learning a lot. We have a militarized zone in my community and learning a lot of different things. These floods that everyone's heard about Texas. Well, we just got hit with a whole lot of that just last week too. So growing, learning, and really just doing anything I can, Jonathan, to pay it forward to the next generation. I've been blessed with amazing mentors, and anything I can do to help anyone else, that's my message. So thanks for letting me share a little bit about my background.
No, thanks, Scott. That is impressive. I was talking to Sam beforehand. I was like, both of you, your reputations precede you, and it's great that I'm glad you're able to share just the breadth of work that you've done and at different levels and in different areas. So the experiences you have are so variable, and I know that brings so much wisdom to your current role. One thing I would like to ask, since you've worked at the county level and the city level, and I've had both county managers and city managers, and I'm always so curious to see, for people that have worked in both sides of both seats, what's the difference between city and county man, or what's the biggest difference?
Hit me up, Jonathan. You know that answer. So counties it'll be hard for control freak type of managers. If they're control freaks, it's tough. You have your 6, 7, 8 elected areas that you don't have much input on. Only the governor can get rid of them. And Sam's actually been around me when I've dealt with some very interesting things with some of my elected areas. Saying that, will go as far as to say county is much harder. It has been for me. I'm very collaborative, so I work on that. And I think I have pretty good relationships with most of my electeds. And when I say elected, for those listening, I don't mean my board. I think I have good relationship with all of them. but county's challenging. It's a lot more. State law factors in a lot more. I feel like it's a little more political, where you're at your state capital a lot more, you're at your federal capital a lot more, and you're learn a tremendous amount. It's been a steep learning curve for me. I'm 10 months in now, so now I know what I'm up against fully. So I'm really enjoying the challenge.
Nice. Yeah, no, I've definitely heard that, and the more political is definitely one that always comes up. I mean, we've even like interviewed a couple state reps, state senators, just to kind of see how that interplays with municipal government. So I definitely hear what you're saying. Now, Sam, I have to ask. When you made the transition, what was the vision for CiviSocial? Did you know immediately that you wanted to focus on county and city managers? And what was the impetus for that focus? Was it your time working in council, or was there you saw a need with that population?
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. I felt like I'd done all that there was to do. I'd had enough success in my career that there wasn't any hill to climb. And so I actually had reached out to my family. I asked my mom, I'm like, I'm struggling. I've made enough money and I'm not finding fulfillment in work anymore. And I don't want, I just turned 50. I don't know what I want to do. I'm too young to retire. I'm too burnt out to continue just sort of making billionaires more money in a medium that I sort of am getting a little bit frustrated with. And she said, I think that when you were happiest, you were in local government. You should go back and work in local government. And I said, well, that's a lovely thought, mother, but I have no skills. You listen to Scott's resume. I mean, it takes actual brain power to a manager to do that. So it certainly was not going to jump into a manager seat, and I can't put on a policeman's uniform. I can't put on a firefighter. Like I thought, it's a lovely notion, but not something that I really was able to take advantage of. And and then I was driving. I have a home in Buffalo, New York, and I have a home in Fort Lauderdale. And sometimes when I'm seeking, I just get on the road because nothing clears your mind like looking at 1,300 miles of highway. And somewhere around West Virginia, the lightning bolt struck, which was, hey, dummy, you're the expert, one of the top experts in social media. You love local government. Social media has hurt local government. You should figure out an intersection. And it was one of those wonderful moments where it's like, wow, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I couldn't stop thinking about it for like 8 more hours of driving. All I could think about was what would that look like? And by the time I got to my house in Buffalo, I had an idea. And I literally picked up the phone and called my former city manager, the first city manager I worked with. His name is Andy Hall. He's now the manager in San Clemente, California, who preceded Charlie. And I said, Andy, I think I can fix social media. He's like, nice to hear from you, Sam. We haven't talked in 5 years. Yeah, I know. I hope you don't mind me just calling you randomly, but I think I've figured it out. And the best part is you don't need to hire a marketing firm. You don't need to actually hire anybody. The magic is sitting right in your own staff. You just need to know how to operationalize it, how to structure it, how to give them permission and encouragement to do this differently. And he said, well, okay. I said, let me come to San Clemente. I don't know what this is. I don't know what it looks like, but I want to build something and I want to come to San Clemente and do it. And if you let me sort of guinea pig on your staff, I'll do it for you and I won't charge you anything. He said, Sam, I loved working with you as a council member. For you, yes. And so I did it and it worked beyond my wildest imagination. And it was one of those moments where it's like, I've created something that's actually going to work. And I tried it again and it worked even better. And it's been transformative for me. I hope for my clients too. I mean, you can ask Scott. He's a recent graduate, so transformation in social media does take time. But I feel that the people I work with really like a light bulb goes on, and the way that they've always looked at social media for so many years is this pain point, is this thing that's constantly in the background creating stress and havoc, can be fixed, and most importantly, can be fixed with the people around you, because you as managers all know how amazing your staff is. That's why you, I think, do this work. And so to find that value in them, for them to be able to solve the problem with a little help from me has been wonderful. So that's the simple version of the story.
I love that. First, I love that you reached out to the person who knows best.
Mom knows best.
I definitely appreciate that. But then also just harkening back to when you felt fulfilled and then utilizing the network that you have created and then testing. That shows the innovation. I know you've been around some incredible companies, but shows that innovation, that scrappiness. And then I love when you were going, you said, I tried it, it worked well. Then I tried it again and it worked even better. And I'm sure, we had that conversation before getting on. You've done an incredible job, and you've had a lot of for those of us that are pretty clued into to local government. You've had a lot of the heavy hitters in your program, so I definitely tip my hat off to you, and including Scott. So, Scott, what was the pain point that you felt that made you know that you wanted to just work on or increase or better your social media engagement?
Sure. As a new guy in my role, it's always nice, as you all know, the value of consultants because they can say all the things that you can't say and shouldn't say sometimes. So I knew of Sam. We were connected on LinkedIn and even interacted. But it took one of my OG mentors, Lee Feldman. I have to shout out Lee. Lee's the godfather, and Lee gave me a nudge. He's like, "No, seriously, check him out." I said, "Well, we were already talking, so let's do so." Sam and I hit it off real quick. I mean, people say hit it off, but I consider Sam a friend at this point. I take so much pride in my organizations. He came in and stirred the pot. All these wheels were going for everyone. So we had a team that was experiencing a lot of transition, both in and out of buildings, in and out of different roles, bringing new people on and learning new ideas. So all of that at once. And I've got a decent following on social media, and there's some things I've done well and not so well in the past. But again, I'm definitely no expert. So I reached out to Sam. Sam came in, created a ton of excitement. I've already seen tremendous growth in at least three individuals on my team. But in addition to those three, the biggest win to me was all the other folks in the organization that don't work in that department, that the creative squad. I mean, my team just loves that idea. And you have people now that are doing dual roles, doing multiple things, wanting to grow. Heck, other people want to transition into this area now. So I give a lot of credit to Sam, and for those that are possibly on the fence, I know it sounds like a testimonial at this point, but I do believe it. It's very non-traditional in its efforts. It's not sitting down watching videos. I mean, there's interactive ideas, but Sam brings real world knowledge, introduces the government, and empowers the team. So I think that's the ticket.
I love that, and it seems, and I can feel the passion that's coming through, and authenticity. And I always say on the podcast, passion and authenticity, everyone's attracted to, and I can definitely feel that. Now, pivoting just a touch. Earlier, I alluded to both of you are authors, and I don't know if we want to talk about the new one because a little birdie told me that you're releasing a new book coming pretty soon. But what encouraged you to start writing? And then what is, if you're comfortable, the topic for your new book?
You want to go, Sam?
No, Scott, it's you.
Okay.
You just literally announced this. I think either yesterday or today. I saw the link,
Today.
and right before
Yeah, sir.
right before I joined this podcast, I saw your amazing, very, by the way, look at that, Scott's socials and his video. Oof. I feel like not only the testimonial, but just watching how he's changing his approach is exciting to watch based on some of the learnings. So go ahead, talk about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm no best-selling author or anything. I technically have that bestseller title because I had a very unique niche in my first book I wrote, which was about my daughter and our growth and recovering through loss and the grief patterns. So I wanted to tell her story. So that was part of my first book. So this to me is my passion project. This is my brand, Lead with Love. I've been working on for years, and it's who I am. Kind of just as corny as advertised, but I own it. You talk about authenticity. That's part of my brand. So lead with love to me. That's servant leadership. That is enthusiasm. That's authenticity, discernment, collaboration. So it just means so much to different people. So this book plays off what we see in the world right now. Probably all of us have several different AI type platforms. We've learned how to do things quicker and better and be super efficient. But along the way, we've lost touch with the human element. I know even my current staff, there's people wondering how this is going to impact their jobs, how this is going to impact and shape our communities. Well, if people learn to have these conversations again and to truly listen when people speak and not listen to respond, and how to read a room and how to just have a presence. So To me, that is the missing link. That is our superpower. And that's really what's going to set us apart as technology just is going to continue to explode these next 10 years. And I don't think people realize what we're up against here soon. And so I think your EQ, that's way more important to your IQ. And I think I'm living proof in that because I'm not never been the smartest guy in any of my teams, but emotional intelligence is your real superpower.
Yeah, no, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, you were talking about AI is going to be good at one thing, so they can't replace that soul. I
Yes,
truly, I
sir.
saw that. I was like, that resonates. It's like you can learn quickly and you can process past information, but the soul of a human that makes those decisions in real time and how they react to a comment. Or how they react to something that's said or a piece of music, that soul of the human is, I don't think it can be replicated. At least not not that I know of.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what Scott's doing is revolutionary, and it very much aligns with my view of artificial intelligence. We come at it from different perspectives. Scott's had a different lived experience, and he's led in a servant leadership manner professionally, and also obviously has some very unique and tragic personal circumstances that has informed, and he's leaned into that and taken, the blessing that his daughter gave him in her life and has turned that into a mission and made that a part of his leadership. And so that humanity is something that I think is core to who he is. It's core to who I am. Leading creative people. When you get into an organization where you are basically leading artists. Yesterday, I was at this amazing event where a bunch of the local art foundation brought hundreds of artists together, and they were given 45 minutes to create works of art, and then you could bid on them to help the foundation. It was wonderful to see. And I bid on way more art than, hopefully I don't win all the bids because not going to know what to do with it. But I was really incredible what these people can do. And it just reminded me that, you know, social media creators, a lot of people call them influencers. They're not, they are creators. The people, if you're a manager listening to this podcast, I want you to really take a moment to acknowledge the creativity. I think about Ariana on Scott's team and how truly creative and inspirational she is. But these are artists. They are making content that tells the story of the work that government does. And so I think that the two things that are so important in this moment, this dawn of a new era, which is AI, and Scott said it so eloquently, we are going to lose the value of intelligence, or the value of intelligence will still be there, but it will be greatly um, I think, commoditized because today artificial intelligence is now as smart as I think a low level PhD. Within a few months, it'll be probably a Harvard PhD. And then beyond that, who knows? But that basic raw intelligence being commoditized is something I don't think society is ready for. Where value remains in the human experience is exactly what Scott said. It is EQ, it is his brand, it is what he is focused on. But also, it is, in my world, creativity. It is the one thing the machine cannot do: EQ and creativity, right? You can ask it to go back and give you information, and it can look at the whole world of written knowledge and come back with really intelligent, thoughtful responses. One of the things I've done with AI is I've asked it to give me sort of outlines and guidance for social media when I was writing my book. And I had to toss it because what it was saying was wrong. And I know why it was wrong, because it was based on marketers who are the only people who have ever written about social media. When I think about Mr. Beast, whose name is Jimmy, or Carl on his team, who I got the pleasure of working really closely with, or a kid named Creekcraft, who got into social media because he couldn't get a job at Walmart and now is the largest Roblox influencer with, I think, 19 million followers. All of these kids that basically built social media that we know today learned it themselves and did so because they were curious and creative. And they did that test and learn that you just talked about, Jonathan, about my process. I mean, it's deliberate because I've, like Scott, just leaned into the knowledge of others to make myself better. And so that real value, putting value, and as a manager, I want for those listening to really let this sink in. right? Like we here at ICMA, I was talking to Scott's friend, Nick Kittle, who he made this kind introduction to, and Nick got in trouble because he was the one keynoter at ICMA that said, AI is going to take your job or could take your job. Whereas everyone else is like, AI is not going to take your job. It's just a tool. Don't worry about it. But Nick's right. Like, if you are not putting value on human things like EQ, managing human creativity, human problem solving, thinking about things differently. If you don't understand that the value in your organization is going to change in the ways that Scott is writing about and the ways that I am writing about, you are going to find yourself in a world of hurt very quickly because AI is going to change and it's going to be a pretty dramatic disruption. Anyway, I went on a tangent. I just so responded to what Scott said. I just had to say he's spot on.
All right. I appreciate that. And as you know, I'm a big fan. So I just wanted to put it up there at least once. So thank you. I not only appreciate you coming on the podcast, I appreciate the thoughts that you put out about social media. And there's certain things, even with the podcast, that I try to implement. Now, one question I do have, and please you don't have to say where it was, what has been maybe one issue or challenge that you've seen alleviated through social media? You talked about those same 10 people, and I know that is something that I hear about throughout most of my conversations. How have some of your strategies alleviated maybe a challenge for someone?
So the word authenticity was used by all three of us during this conversation. And really the secret is that, right? Scott mentioned Trump at the onset. I will throw in Mamdani, like two of the most opposite ends of the spectrum politicians. Like one is very far left and one is very far right. Reminds me of my old counsel, right? One thing that you can say about Donald Trump, whether you love him or you hate him, even the most hateful person of Donald Trump has to admit that the guy, when what he says is who he is. You may hate everything that he says, you may hate everything about who he is, but you know it's real. And people were shocked that Mamdani, who had like a less than 1% recognition, a tiny office as a kid, came out of nowhere. I was listening to Mark Cuban talk about his experience on the Kamala Harris campaign. And he said, look, Joe Biden dropped out of the race. We were 10 points down. And he was very intimately involved. He goes, when I sat with Kamala Harris, she swears like a sailor. She's a really fun person to be in the room. And by the way, when there was that Brat Summer, and for those of you who don't know what Brat Summer was, it was that sort of TikTok-led Kamala's coming out party as the new nominee. Mark Cuban's like, we gained 10 points. We evened the race in a matter of a week and a half, right? The problem, as Cuban points out, and it's funny in this podcast, he mentions like, what the Democratic Party should have done is fire all their consultants and just talk to Mr. Beast. And I agree with that because Jimmy's pretty brilliant. But what he meant was the minute they started packaging her, the minute they started to make Kamala the talking points and the policy papers and we got to set the perfect stage and the perfect press release, it becomes inauthentic. And the key ingredient, what changes social media, the approach that is, I think, very unique to what I do. You're not going to hire a marketer who's going to tell you this. You're not going to hire a social media consultant who's run a marketing account or even run a local government account to tell you this. It is, you have to lose the fear of being yourself, because when people see the amazing people that are Scott, from him on down, right? Every person that I got to meet in Doña Ana County had an amazing story to tell. Every time I ask people, whether it's in tiny Harrisburg, South Dakota, or massive Roanoke County or Doña Ana County, right? The answer is the same. They have a passion to do this work because they care about their neighbors and they want to do something for other people. And if you say that truthfully, sorry, my dog is going crazy, but I guess he agrees with me. If you say that truthfully, not packaged, not created, but really say it in your voice, and also allow the parks worker, the public works worker, the police officer to say it in their own voice. That is what changes, because the SCPs have a really easy job attacking the seal, the building, the tax bill, the Canva posts, the flyers that people in local government put on their social media pages. Attacking a police officer, a parks worker, a county manager with a heart like Scott's, a different story. That's the change. Sorry about the dog.
No, all good. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that authenticity. And I've seen it. We spoke about Michael earlier. Michael
Mhm.
in Plainville, like he is so authentic in
Yeah.
everything he's doing, and it works. Like I just follow it just because it's interesting. So I think that's definitely powerful. Scott, saying on authenticity, you are coming up on your first year as county manager. This is a two-parter. Can you give me any learnings that you've had from that first year, and then what are your priorities going into year two?
Yeah, great question. So I'm in a unique situation where my predecessor actually won the DA election. He's right across the hall down here. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it's quite interesting. Um, so I go back to the relationships with the elected leaders. And sorry, I laughed at Sam's dog there. Your dog's had a heck of a week, Sam. So
Yeah, I know.
learning quite a bit just in the county setup. And again, we're 4,000 square miles. This is the most rural place. I've always been kind of a city guy the rest of my career. So I'm learning a lot. And what we haven't done real well in my community, and I don't think it was prioritized as much as just getting out. We all talk about getting to residents where they are, but we have a building that operates on a 8 to 5 schedule. We don't have a blue collar community. Probably you're going to come in before or after their work. And we're 4,000 square miles. I mean, it takes you over an hour to get to the other side of the county. So we talk about meeting people where they are. And I know every good city and county manager says that phrase, but are we doing it? So I'm making an intentional effort, actually, even this morning, just making sure we're staffing all of our community centers. That's one thing. Some of our volunteers staff a couple of our facilities. It's crazy to me. I've never seen that anywhere. So we're spread so thin. We have roughly 900 employees for 4,000 square miles. So quickly do the math there. We're not reaching everyone. So want to staff up our facilities, want to reach people where they are. Sam's helped in different ways on communication strategies. And now we're looking at it also from a logistics standpoint. So having staff there, are we communicating? I have a hefty amount of our residents that only speak Spanish, much less that are bilingual. So we implemented a Spanish only TikTok channel here recently where we're reaching our young audience and our Hispanic population. So that's been very helpful. But just communicating. Again, I mentioned militarized zone. That's everything below I-9 in my county is now militarized zone. It's very unprecedented time. So that means hunters, are they wandering in the wrong places? Are military land, BLM, Land Bureau land versus county land? So we're having to communicate on things that I've never had to deal with. A lot of managers, I'm sure, have never had to deal with. Moving forward, it's streamlining our communication, our processes, and implementing everything off a strategic plan. Again, I'm not throwing shade at anyone in the past, but everything was just based off those priorities or that legislative session or whatever was the big deal that year. So if they can me in 4 or 5 years or I leave here, I want to make sure that we're set for the long term and have a plan moving forward and a playbook, for lack of a better word.
I love that, and you actually stumbled across another one of my questions. Half the reason I do this is connecting with younger people. So
Yeah.
we do similarly. We do a lot of outreach on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and we've done a lot of surveys with people that are 18 to 24
Mm.
to see what is prohibiting them from potentially getting into public service, being more civically
Yes.
engaged. So the fact that you're already thinking not just about young people, but also young people that may not speak English, but still need to be engaged. But what is the strategy that you use and how has it been working to get people interested, not just in potentially being civically engaged, but potentially working at the county or in municipal government?
That's a great question. So we're only about a month into this experiment. So I'll throw a softball lob over Sam's way because he did all those demographics and studies on us. Sam, what do you think?
Yeah, look, I mean, this sort of ties to the last question that you asked about the STPs. Let's define the STPs, right? These are typically retired folks with a lot of time on their hands or basement dwellers with probably a lot of, maybe some mental issues. And what's unfortunate is people that sat in the seat that I, or sit in the seat that I sat in as elected officials think that they're representative of the community. It's always fascinating. Like when I went to Doña Ana, they were when I pulled their demographics, they were the youngest community that I had worked with. Their average age was 31 years old. right? And when you do the decade by decade census, sort of like this are the decades of population, what I like to do is I then take those decades and I lay the social media platforms, because guess what? An 18-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, they're not on Facebook. They may have a Facebook account and they may check in with their grandparents, but that is it. They're spending like 5 minutes on Facebook to check in with family, and then they're on Instagram, and mostly they're on TikTok, right? And so local government chose Facebook because that's when social media started, and they got it, and they built their audience there. And that audience has aged and aged and aged. And also it's the sort of breeding ground of STP behavior. If you want to engage young people, you have to have communications platforms that young people use and speak in a language and an authenticity that young people understand. I have a wonderful story. I'll use Scott and Ariana as an example. Ariana launched their TikTok. I think she sent me a video a week or 2 weeks after the program finished. Um, it was recruiting video for public safety. And she had like over 700 shares of that video on a brand new account, right?
Mhm.
Young people looking at public safety for the first time as a possible career path. Why? Because you're putting it on the right channel where they're going to find it.
Right.
My favorite story in this regard comes from my second client, who one of the code enforcement officers happened to be going to a movie, and he took his girlfriend and he wore his jersey that said, the city's name and code enforcement. And he walks into the movie theater, and the young 20-something ticket taker said, "You're in code enforcement." And the guy said, "Oh my God, he's thinking to himself, oh my God, I'm with my girlfriend. This guy's going to hit me, because, we know code enforcement's not exactly the most popular game in town." But before he could like shield his girlfriend from the oncoming whatever was going to come, the guy goes, "I see you guys on TikTok. I think code enforcement is so cool. How could I get a job in code enforcement?" Right? It's because when young people see the work of government, the real work, not the policy paper, not the Canva post that says happy hot dog day, or, the roads closed on Smith Street. When they see authentic people their own age doing this work that is inspiring and is far more interesting than, you know, doing marketing for Pepsi or Coke, uh, it's going to get them in the door. It's going to inspire them. But we have to, I think it was said, meet them where they are. You actually have to do that. You can't just say, "I'm going to meet them where they are." A lot of people are using Instagram, but they're just cross posting Facebook
Right.
content onto Instagram. That's not meeting young people where they are. That's just using a lazy device that makes the channels interconnected because they're owned by the same parent company. Like, you've got to understand the language. And look, we mentioned Ariana a couple times. She's a young lady in her, early or mid 20s. You need to empower people like that to tell the story if you want people of that age to hear the story.
No, I love that, and I think we drink the same Kool-Aid for
Yeah.
sure. Like we did like a survey, and one of the biggest things people were saying was representation. I need to see young people doing it.
Yeah.
I need to see young people. So we launched recently. We just had our third interview, the Gentry Future Leaders. So I interview the leaders like yourselves, but then also I interview people that just got started or just getting their MPA, because people need to see, and it needs to be authentic. So I know you're on to something. Obviously, you've been doing this for years, but I just wanted to reiterate it, because it feels, people say government is a thankless job. And I think some of that is because people don't understand what you're giving them. And so they don't know to say thank you, because they don't know what they're getting. But when you show them what you're doing, when you show them what you're giving them, people are like, "Oh man, you're the reason that this is happening. This is great. Thank you for that." And I think that's was part of that story
Yeah.
that you showed with it.
And I want to ping this back to Scott for a second, since he gave me a softball. Like, this is an EQ exercise for me, right? I, in my career, pivoted from traditional movies and television into social media. And what I found was all the people that worked for me were, 20, 22, 19, 23, right? These were the people who had the magic and the formula. And if you've worked in movie and film, it's very hierarchical. The length of service that if you're a director of photography, you've worked your way up and you've earned your stripes and you've done all this stuff. But when you're managing young people who have that talent, you have to have the humility to say, I may be the most experienced person in the room, but my job is to lift them up. And I think that's sort of where Scott's brand is so important, because I think a lot of managers, and even the professional association sort of values this hierarchy. And I think it's changing. And I'd love to hear Scott's thoughts on that.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for the softball, but yeah, absolutely. Being vulnerable. I'm a generalist by trade. I've said 3 times already in this podcast, I'm not an expert at anything, but I have an expert on my team. So our job is, what does it cost us to just put a young person in the same meeting, even if they're just taking notes and soaking it all up? That's going to pay huge dividends in year 2. So my philosophy is just be vulnerable, talk about our strengths, our weaknesses, be optimistic that it's going to get better, and empower the teams. We have talented leaders in every one of our areas. So, in fact, Jonathan, I have a great idea for a future Gentry podcast for you. ICMA has a fellowship program you're probably familiar with. I just got 2 new fellows in here, and I've had fellows for 7 years going back. And that is a perfect demographic for you to look at as a recent MPA grads. And heck, I learned from them in each meeting, the way they approach and problem solve and think about scenarios. It makes me challenge my own mindset. So I think if everyone was just humble enough really to check themselves, you can learn everything from everyone around you. Really.
Love that. And I appreciate that. I think that's going to be a great pipeline of people for the Gentry Future Leaders. And I appreciate that. I was speaking to another city manager from Virginia, and he was telling me, he was like, when you put somebody in a position that they may not quote unquote deserve or may not have the experience to be there, uh, they're going to grow to that level, and they're also going to be loyal, knowing that you were giving them the opportunity that maybe in another place they wouldn't have received. So I think that's so smart. You said it doesn't take much to put people in those meetings, but the dividends on the back end in that year 2 and then even year 10 is so impactful. So I think you're very much thinking about that in a great way. When I
I'll go one step further,
Let's do it.
and I'm gonna quote one of my former bosses, a guy named Barry Diller. For those of you in your audience who probably have never heard of Barry Diller, look him up. One of the true legends, both in media and tech. Founder of things like Ticketmaster, Expedia, Match, Tinder. Also ran Paramount and Fox. Created the Fox network. Barry is truly one of the smartest people I've ever met. Barry's philosophy, and he's very particular about this, is he actually thought of experience as a negative. When he would hire executives, what he would describe as, I'm throwing a talented person in the deep end of the pool. And Barry was not exactly the kindest man, but he would say, if they sink to the bottom, oh well. But if they rise and eventually get their nose above water and swim, I know that I've got my next leader. And that is a very brave thing to do. But that's because Barry, didn't have the ego or the pride. He didn't go and get the Ivy League education. He started in the mailroom and he learned by doing. And so he now empowers young people to do. And so I think so much of it is, my assumption is, if you're a person who is unwilling to allow a young person to step into a role and you use experience as the rationale, I'd ask yourself, is that really your own fear or your own insecurity about your experience, and things that you feel in yourself versus taking the risk on that young person? I really think a lot of people cling to their expertise as an excuse to keep their seat and their power. I always believed, and I'm certain that Scott is the same way, I always want people smarter than me. And if they take my job, and it has happened, I have been one of those executives who not only mentored, but encouraged that person to eventually take my seat when I didn't have a seat. But it was the right thing to do. He was ready for that role. And that's because I always approach life with fearlessness. I'm confident in who I am. And because of that confidence, I hired the most talented young people to teach me and to make me better.
I love that. I feel like we all have an appreciation for the younger generation. And I think it's even more impressive, like in Scott's seat, who's running the county, and Sam's seat, who's influencing these people that are running cities to show that appreciation of that next generation, because they, we see strategic plans and comprehensive plans, and, we're city plan 2035. And it's like the people that you're actually serving are in middle school or they're in
Right.
high school.
Yeah.
So you really have to understand that population if you really want to make the best thing. And I think that gets me to one of our final questions. And I want to ask you both this. I'll start with Sam, then I'll go to Scott, especially because Sam, social media is so metric driven, and you want to hit this, customer acquisition cost or this a click-through rate. What do you see as success for the city managers or county managers that you work with?
Yeah, look, I think that the metrics are a part of a creative process, right? There's a term I use in media called money follows. One of the biggest frustrations I had in the young part and middle part, and even towards the end of my career, is I would jump into a leadership or a middle management position where I was in charge of creating content that ultimately had to be monetized. And my bosses, the people in the CEO seat or the revenue seat, didn't come from creative space. They're rightfully in charge of making the business money. And inevitably, I would always have the conversation of, Sam, what we really need from you and your team is just make a hit, right? And I would respond to them by saying, not tongue in cheek, if I had that power, I wouldn't be working for you, right? Because there is no such person. There is no such thing. There are a few of them that are really, really have a track record. There's only a sliver of Lady Gaga's or Steven Spielberg's or Mr. Beast's. The people that are innately able again and again and again to just deliver creatively that works for audience, but it's a tiny number. And those people, you have to pay them tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, like Ryan Murphy and Shonda Rhimes, hundreds of millions of dollars. So your expectation has to be you're going to have to let the audience tell you. This is where the analytics come in. So the best approach is to have some creative bravery. You will understand because you live in that community, you manage that community, you know that community. If you're listening to STPs and you're trying to assuage them, you're talking to the wrong people. Look at your demographics. Who are the people that you need to talk to? And then begin to test messaging, trusting young people to help you with that messaging. Of course, I'd be happy to help create the structure like I did for Scott to find those people, empower those people, and give them the tools. And what all of my clients find over time is a couple of things. Number one, average client over 6 to 12 months will see an 80% reduction in negativity on social media. How about that? They also see a tremendous amount of IRL engagement. Yeah, you're not Mr. Beast, you don't have 400 million followers, you have a few thousand followers. But it's amazing how much reach those few thousand followers and all those shares create. People like Mike Paulus get stopped in the street all the time. I love what you're doing on TikTok. Think about that example of the movie theater. I've seen you on TikTok. You start getting people in real life to acknowledge and recognize your work. So the metrics, I'm an uber data nerd. I look at everything through the lens of data and I look at everything through the lens of audience. But the tangible benefit of actually doing social media correctly is immeasurable because it reduces your stress. As an organization, it makes your staff feel better. It empowers them. It gives them job satisfaction. It reduces the negativity. And over time, you see your follower growth, your share growth, all of the sort of vanity metrics that we talk about, likes and comments and engagement rates. But the great news for people in local government, you're not trying to sell anything. People are going to pay their taxes or they're going to lose their house. So, right, you don't have to sell them on, a product. You don't have to monetize your metrics. Like that's something I did. And that's actually a lot harder. You just have to convince them that you are good people with with the good intentions to do good for your community. If you can do those things, you can be great at social media and the metrics will follow.
Wow. I love that. I don't know why, but I've never really thought about it. Yeah, for most people on social media, or not all, but it's how can I monetize this? But for,
Yeah.
for local government, it's how can I just prove that we are doing our job and we are good people?
Yeah.
But both have their struggles, but definitely, I never really thought about that. Now, Scott, I'd like to ask you. You've talked about a lot of the learnings from year one, some of the priorities for year two. What does success in general look like for Doñana County?
Yeah, success looks like having 10 good options for each role. To me, succession planning is that key. I've never been one to care about my name on buildings or anything like that. It's about the people, and I've only stayed 3.5 years my last couple roles, so uh, a lot of those buildings have come up afterwards because we know government's super fast. Joking aside, I have three assistant county managers. I would like to make sure that all of them are ready, in addition to several department heads and other key leaders to step into my role if they get rid of me or if I leave. And the same thing goes all the way down the org chart, making sure we have five good people for every director role, five good people for every management role. So it's really just empowering the team, getting everyone to think bigger. And you touched on earlier, what does a career in local government look like? So one of my personal goals is just really getting in the community, and people have no idea some of the jobs that they can have in local government. So just exposing them to what that looks like. I've got to do so many cool things in my career. I did events years ago when I was a department head for City of Sugar Hill, and my office became the green room until the green room was built. Like Third Eye Blind and Travis Tritt, and these guys are all hanging out in my office, and that's a cool story. I think young people might like some of those stories. Cool in the Gang was a whole lot of fun to hang out with. That's things that people don't think of. I can't name drop celebrities or anything like that, but that's something I think people don't realize that that's a pathway. Economic development, having a small role, but getting pro sports franchise to transition. I mean, that is cool. Building out downtowns and changing the landscape of a community for decades. I mean, that's transformative. And all it takes is that seed, that thought just to get started. If I could just sprinkle seeds all over the place, that would be my life's work.
You got me fired up. Hanging out with Cool and the Gang, relocating the Braves, like
Yes,
those are
sir.
some big things, and I'm glad that our viewers will be able to see that. But before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you, Scott, are there any final words that you'd like to either give to just the viewers in general or to young people that are watching?
Yeah, that's broad enough, but I think local government is the key. Everyone gets so fired up at whether they love or hate Obama or Trump or whatever that looks like. This is the key. This is where they make the impact. People get fired up and curse out their CNN or Fox TV, but they don't come to the town hall meetings. That just drives me crazy. Everyone in the world gets their 2 or 3 minutes to say whatever they want, and believe me, they say it. So I think just getting involved in local government and creating that pathway for other future leaders, we owe that to the future generation because our mentors did that to us. So that's what I think I'll end with.
That and I appreciate that, and that's as I've shared, like that's why I do why I do. Everybody just thinks of government as this amorphous block and just
Yeah,
thinks how their opinions are just shaped about how they think of the federal government, but it's the local government that affects their day-to-day quality of lives, the jobs they have, the roads, everything. So
yes,
I
sir.
appreciate that. And then Sam, to close us out, what would you leave the viewers generally or young people watching?
So, democracy is a word that we talk about a lot. And I'm going to echo what Scott said that democracy is really precious. And citizens, it's hard to go to Washington, D.C., it's hard to get to meet your congressperson. If they give you 5 minutes, you're a lucky human, right? You can't go and speak to, when Congress is in session, you can't go up to open mic and talk to them about your concerns or what you want. And you can do that in local government. My reason for doing what I do is I really worry that we have lost our in this noise. And I feel partially responsible because I've run a social media platform and I have benefited personally from the rise and success and contributed to the success of social media as a medium, right? The damage that it has caused to democracy itself is not something we should take lightly. It's too late to stop the noise machine that Scott mentioned at the federal level and at some point at the state level too. If we, and again, this is my why, if local government can prove that social media can be used for good to reconnect people to the thing that we call democracy, but really is, neighbors serving neighbors, taking care of each other, looking out for each other. I guess the last thing I'd say is when I woke up after running for office and I'd won my election, it wasn't about, oh my gosh, I got the title of city council member. I'm going to get my name on a building or a park or something like that. I actually took a walk around my neighborhood and it overwhelmed me almost to the point of tears. I don't know these people, but they've asked me to represent their interests, to be the person that's going to speak for them. And that is a powerful and awesome responsibility. It is the magic of this thing that this country created so many years ago, coming up on 250 years ago, that America was this idea that people could govern themselves. The only way people can govern themselves, in my humble opinion, is through communications. If we lose the ability to connect with people and connect with people authentically, the way Scott and I connected, we did not know each other until I got the privilege of going to Doña Ana County. And I'm also proud to say Scott is a friend of mine, as are so many of all of the managers I've worked with. I see as friends. I see how hard they work. I see the challenges they face. There's not a single person that I have worked with that's heart isn't in service. I want the communities that they serve to see that. And that is my why. And I think it's possible. I'm proving it's possible. And I hope that others don't let fear prevent them from making possible change because it's important to democracy.
That is a great way to end it. Don't let fear with the mic drop. Yeah, don't let fear end democracy. Don't let fear end communication, and make sure that you are amplifying the leaders that are doing great work. And that is my why. So to sum it up, but no, I'd like to personally thank you both. Got to follow you guys for both for months now, and just to see the evolution to new youth commissions and new outlets to new books. And then Sam, yeah, you're on a rocket ship with all the some of the favorite people that I follow are working with you. So something's going horribly right.
It's at the end of the day, you know what? The other thing I'll let you know is I never have sent a cold email to anybody. People are like, "How are you getting all of your clients?" And look, I took inspiration from Scott and Amanda and Mike. They give of themselves on LinkedIn. They just provide value. They're sharing wisdom, they're sharing knowledge, and they're doing that consistently. And so that's what I did. I was like, I'm just going to share my knowledge of social media. I wrote the book. I give the book away to city and county managers. I've given away 400 copies in the last few months. Anyone who needs it and feels it'll be valuable, if they work with me, that is wonderful. You can talk to any one of the 17 folks that have had the opportunity to work with CiviSocial, and it's a pretty cool thing. But you never have to. There's never an expectation. I just want to do good because my heart is in this. And if I can help somebody, man, it's a privilege of a lifetime because I get to hang out with another amazing government leader.
Well, there it is. Again, I appreciate you both. This has been an incredible interview. I've always learned as always from you two, and I just appreciate your time. So from everyone at the Gentry Podcast, we appreciate it. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we have Sam Toles, the CEO of CiviSocial, and then we also have Dr. Scott Andrews, who is the county manager of Doña Ana, New Mexico. I am super excited, and for everybody, I'd like to say thank you.